Welcome everyone to the fall semester Communication Across the Curriculum discussions, or CAC. And today we welcome DOMINIC BEGGAN from the Government Department, and Dom's topic is title is Houston Strong: Reflections on Hurricane Harvey, Lessons Learned by an Academic Institution. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to say everyone because I'm talking to the camera too. So some people, my name is Dr. Beggan, teach at Lone Star College, Montgomery, in the Government Department, Political Science Department. So I'm going to talk about the next 45 minutes about my sabbatical, which I had last fall. And the first 5 or 10 minutes, I'm going to talk about the actual process of the sabbatical, which will be very good to everybody sitting here if you haven't taken one. If you've had a sabbatical before, maybe you can share your insights as well. So I'll talk about the practical things you need to think about. I'm going to show you my proposal. And if you want a copy of this, you can contact me and I will email you a copy. It's not a problem. And I'll pass around a copy of the final product, which I produced at the end of sabbatical. So I'll spend about the first 10 minutes just talking about getting the sabbatical and why you should think about it. And then the rest of it is what I did on my research and what I hope to do with it, etc. So two things that are very important that I learned from this sabbatical. Buy flood insurance. It's only between $400 and $500. It's $1.25 per day to your house. The maximum that you can get charged is around about $580. I think max is about that. And that covers everything. And you need flood insurance. I don't care. Unless you live on a very high plateau on top of a hill, I would buy flood insurance if you live in Houston. I learned that from this experience. I didn't have flood insurance before because I'd never flooded. And nobody around me flooded, but I found out why it's important by doing this project. And the second thing is to apply for a sabbatical as soon as possible. As soon as you're eligible, and you're eligible after 7 years, you apply in the 8th year. Okay, so that's what I'm going to talk about. So the first part is just about the sabbatical. The process. So these are just examples of my proposal. I'll just start over there. And like I said, if you want a copy of this, I'll send you an electronic copy. You can just look at it as I'm talking. But some of the basics about sabbatical. Administrators and faculty are eligible for a sabbatical after 7 years of working here. After the 7th year, you're allowed to apply. You're going to get an email. Some of you got the email already. The proposal is due October 1st. So it's due. So if you wanted to do it for next year, you would apply you've got a month to get ready, essentially. There are 10 parts to the proposal, and I've shown you my answers to those 10 parts, okay? And the hardest thing is just to come up with what you want to do and try and align that to support the mission of the college. It doesn't necessarily have to be 100%, but it makes your proposal much more solid. Does anybody get a proposal? Did anybody get a sabbatical here before? Okay. Well, basically, you can get in the sabbatical. You can take a semester off, or you can take a year off, 2 semesters. Okay. If you just take a semester, it doesn't impact your wages. You can pay it 100%. If you want to take both semesters off and you're a 9-month contract, you get 50% of your wages. So some people might want to do the year. I find that financially a little bit too problematic for myself, so I just took the semester. And you get to choose which semester you're going to do it. Do you want to do it in the fall, or do you want to do it in the spring? Okay? So when you fill out the application, it's going to tell you what you want the sabbatical for. You need to do a little bit of the groundwork first and have a little bit of theory behind why you want to do this. And you need to do a lit review. And you'll see in my proposal I did that. And then they're going to ask you a few questions. How is it going to benefit you? How's it going to benefit your students? How's it going to benefit Lone Star, Montgomery? And how's it going to benefit the system? Okay? And my suggestion there is to try and tie it to SLOs and the values and the missions of the college. And take them from our side, the cultural values, the mission values, and build that into what you're trying to do. There's a committee on campus that's going to review it. You get approval from your dean first. You get a committee, we have a sabbatical committee in every college, and then it's going to be approved by our president. If that happens, your proposal goes to the system-wide proposals, and then all colleges are allowed to put their sabbatical proposals in together. And then there's a large committee, and they vote on which ones are going to be granted, based on the merits of what they see. You know, how does it help students? How does it benefit you professionally, et cetera, et cetera. My proposal was quite different in that I was looking at another school. I was looking at Lone Star Kingwood. I was looking at Lone Star Kingwood College. So I had to get approval from our president to work at another college because I was going to be interviewing that president and their. So my proposal was slightly different, and Dr. McGee asked the president of Lone Star Kingwood College would that be okay first, and to get the approval, so it's not one faculty from one college just walking onto somebody else's campus. Because in the process of my sabbatical proposal, I was going to have to interview the VP, the president, staff members. So mine was slightly different. You might be doing a sabbatical where you're going to New Zealand, and so you wouldn't need something like that. Or you're going to, you know, Ron could be studying English in Oxford. So his is slightly different. But he's still going to do the same thing. He's going to tailor to how it's going to benefit him professionally, and also how it's going to benefit his students, and how he's going to induct it into his classes, and, you know, benefit Lone Star, Montgomery, and the system. So that's a couple of things about the proposal. Your proposal gets stronger when you hit the elements that I talked about. You know, how does it benefit your students, and how does it benefit the system-wide? Sometimes it's luck where not a lot of people put in for it, and so you have a higher probability. But because once you're here 7 years, you're eligible every year after that part. Sometimes people apply and sometimes they don't. Once you have successfully completed your proposal and you've had your sabbatical, the last requirement is that you have to do a presentation, and you have to do that in the convocation. And that's why you saw me up during our convocation at the beginning of last semester. And you have to be willing to present something like this, which is a workshop on what you did and why you did it, et cetera, et cetera. So any questions over the proposal? Like I said, if you're interested in looking over mines, I'm more than happy to share it with you. It was one of the best experiences I've ever had. And as soon as I'll be eligible in 6 years, I'm applying right again. And you can do a follow-up on what you did, or you could just select something different. You're really going to grow professionally and just recharge your batteries. After 7 or 8 years, I've been here 7 years, it was great just to have a semester off to focus on something that I was very interested in, and not to grade papers or not to have to worry about other things. I got up here and also realized that part of this is it's doing research and developing professionally, but it's about you and about quality of life and having 4 or 5, 6 months off to really reevaluate what you do and why you do it. So that's a little bit of background about the proposal. So if you don't get the proposal accepted the first time, apply the following year. If you don't get it the second time, apply the third time. LSU Montgomery can give LSU. Watching the game now. LSU Montgomery can give 10 sabbaticals. Sometimes there might be one sabbatical. You saw the year I presented, there was only me and one other person. Sometimes they might give 2 sabbaticals, sometimes they might give 4 sabbaticals, but they can't. It all depends how many people put in for it. The system can't give out 10 to one college. It's probably going to be about 12 or 15 over all the colleges, 7. But reality is, if you don't get it the first time, just reapply. Just met it being unfortunate that a lot of people from this institution applied that year. Maybe I was lucky the year I applied. Maybe there was only a handful. You don't actually know. Only the committee is privy to that. So that's a little bit about the background here. Any questions about the proposal? Like I said, if you want a copy of mine, you're welcome. Here's the finished product and mines, which was basically a paper on what I learned from my experience. Again, if you want to see a copy of this, I'll be happy to send you an electronic copy. And that's just this one. William. So you can read over that as I talk, and I'll tell you a little bit about it. Okay, so like I said, these are the 2 big takeaways I got from my sabbatical. I didn't have flood insurance before. To me, you better have flood insurance if you live in Houston. Because we're going to be flooding a lot more in the future. After studying what I saw in this, it made me reevaluate the idea of spending that $600 on peace of mind. So, like I said, I produced a paper. This is the title of the paper: Houston Strong, Reflections on Hurricane Harvey, Lessons Learned by an Academic Institution. The purpose of my research was that I wanted to learn about how our college handled it, but I was interested in the topic, and so the research was just, look at how did they handle it, and I came up with some conclusions, but the biggest findings I found out was that Kingwood College was able to rapidly retrain all their faculty members, and then they split the semester into 3 types of formats: 12-week, 8-week, and 6-week. And we're used to doing that because we teach, summer sessions, whatever. It's much easier for us to do that than a university. And we benefited because we were a system rather than a standalone college, and we benefited because we have resources. Yeah, I'll tell you a little bit more, but basically, you're going to see it in the paper. Hurricane Harvey cost us, the university, or the college, $67 million in Kingwood alone. And we only got reimbursed about 3 or 4 weeks ago from the state of Texas. For a portion of that, we got $13.1 million from the state of Texas. We got 10 to 11 million from FEMA, and we got 10 to 11 million from insurance. That leaves about 30 million that we have to come up with. And remember, we only got reimbursed now. So that means 2 years have gone by that we didn't have that 13.1 million. And we're quite fortunate to get that from the Texas legislature. So had we not been in the kind of financial situation where we could burden or handle that burden, other schools could have went under. So we were very, very lucky financially because of our size. And I think we have to think about that. And other institutions will have to think about that. So I wanted to do this research so I could find out information and then, hopefully produce something that I can publish down the road. Okay. So I used a case study approach, and I interviewed all of the administration at Kingwood College, and a lot of the admins, a lot of the adjuncts, a lot of the people in personnel. I tried to interview as many people as possible to get different points of view, whether they were librarians, whether they were grounds people, etc., etc. And that's helped. Why did I do the research? I had published 2 papers before, one on Hurricane Rita and one on Hurricane Ike. I used to teach at Lamar University before I came here, and this should make you pause and think. Altogether, I've been teaching about 16 years in university or college. I was at Lamar for 6 years, and then I've been here 8 years. When I was at Lamar got hit by 2 hurricanes. I got hit by Rita, and I got hit by Ike. And Rita ripped the roof off the tallest building on campus and did between $35 to $40 million damage. And then about a year and a half, 2 years later, or 3 years later, I came through and did another $30 million damage. And then I moved here, and we get $67 million damage. So you said it's just unfortunate that I happen to be at 2 schools, but you're on the Gulf Coast, and you're susceptible to tremendous forces that are going to happen, and it's just going to increase. And we'll look at why it's going to increase. So I live right beside Kingwood College. That's why I told you at the start of the presentation I have to be over there at 4:30 today for a thing. But I live within a mile of Kingwood College, and I first started teaching at Kingwood when I was doing working on ABD, working on a dissertation. So I have a relationship with Kingwood College. I did a lot of adjuncting there, and like I say, I only work. I ride to the campus quite a lot because it's about 5-minute bicycle ride from my house. And then the goal was to do the research and share those insights with our administration and the administration of Kingwood College. And so when I produced the paper that I just gave you, I had about 7 or 8 copies made for their administration, 7 or 8 copies made for our administration. And that was another way of how to share the knowledge. And you can use that in your proposal, how it's going to enhance. So, project goals: learn how Hurricane Harvey impacted Kingwood, study how the culture changed because of this, and then share the lessons. And I'll share the lessons at the end. There was a tremendous cultural change on the campus. Think about this. You've just left your office and you came here. What about if you're not getting into your office for another year and a half? You're not going to meet these people all together for another 6 months. You may not get together. They had social gatherings now and again. But basically, it was the Friday before the fall semester occurred in 2017. They all did what we normally do. You go up that previous week, you get your syllabus all ready to go. They all left each other that Friday. The hurricane hit Friday night, and they didn't get back on campus for nearly a year and a half. Whole campus was closed under renovations. There was partial part of the campus. 2 or 3 buildings were able to be used again. So 6 out of the 9 buildings couldn't be used. So most people didn't have offices. The people that I interviewed for this, actually deans, vice presidents, met them in coffee shops. I was talking to Steve Davis, a history professor at Kingwood. He used to meet his students in Starbucks. And that went on for 2 or 3 semesters. Imagine the psychological impact that's going to have on you. A professor or a dean, or no matter who you are. So it did have a cultural change. And there's a uniqueness that happens during an event like this. It has the ability to bring people together and understand the importance of that. And that was, it has changed the culture there. And I'll talk a little bit more of that in detail. And then, I wanted to share this information. I think it's important to share the information. One thing I'm worried about is institutional memory, what I call institutional memory, that you need to remember and learn from what's happened before. That's okay, but after about 10 or 15 years when people move on, we seem to forget that quite a lot. I don't know if you watched the news recently. The 5th person that was killed in Texas on death row was killed about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Anybody see that in the news? And so I didn't pay much attention until they were talking about him. His name was Larry Salinger. Do you remember him? Were you here from the start of the college?
No, not the first 3 years.
Okay, well, in 1998, one of our students was killed. And the college was pretty new at the time. I just happened to be talking to our chair, and I was saying, did you happen to know about this person that just got killed last night? They were saying on the news that he killed a student at our campus, and he was put to death in death row. But see that institutional memory thing? I was talking to David, and David said, oh yeah, I remember that happening. He said it really impacted the college. We tend to forget things like that because we're replaced by other people. And so many times we forget the lessons that we learned because we don't share them. And that struck in my mind when I heard the situation about that student that had been, a victim of this person. But so this is Kingwood College. I'll tell you a little bit about the impact of the college, and then I'll tell you about the culture, and then I'll tell you about the lessons learned. So this is actually the flooding on the campus that happened. And the water lasted like that for about 4 or 5 days, okay? So you can see just about all the buildings are inundated with, it wasn't a lot of water, it was between 3 and 4 feet of water, okay? I actually live right over here, about a quarter of a mile away. I was extremely lucky, my house didn't flood. I live in a brand new subdivision, Oakhurst subdivision. But there's actually a nursing home right here, and that, the second or third day after that, the second day, I remember helping victims that were stuck there because they lost electricity and they had to carry the people out. There's a lot of elderly. They had to, and you couldn't get down that street, it was so badly flooded. You had to go down by boat. I walked down it, and I was up to here in water, that day. So this is the campus, and it shows you how badly it flooded. This is the only dry parts of campus. Now, this should make you think about something. When they start expansion in the future, where are they going to have to expand? Where would be the safest place to expand? So, this area here, or they're going to have to build that up tremendously. Kingwood College was unfortunate in their location. They're 4,000 feet away from San Jacinto River, and they happen to be beside a water treatment plant. And unfortunately for them, the water treatment plant was knocked offline, and the water treatment plant is right here, about 500 feet up there, that direction. So when the water treatment plant, the sewage plant, was knocked offline, no electricity, the sewage starts going everywhere. And even though this place hadn't flooded yet, it was coming up through the sewers. So one of the recommendations was later on, you need to have some kind of lock system where you can prevent that. And so it became very, very toxic sludge that filled the whole campus. Flooding is bad enough, but flooding when it's sewage is really problematic and really adds to the cost tremendously. So that's a little bit about the flooding. Now, this map is showing you, and it made me think quite a lot about, what you should be doing. Kingwood College is right above this circle here. This is San Jacinto Fork coming down here. Kingwood College is right there, and then it turns, and then it heads towards Lake Houston. Well, anywhere there's going to be a turn in the river, that's where it's going to overrun its banks. Unfortunately for Kingwood College, it was relatively close to this. Okay? I live right here, maybe 2,000 feet away from college, and I didn't flood. It just happened to be luck where I was. So that made me think long and hard about getting flood insurance. And even if I had lived in here, I would get flood insurance too. This part of Kingwood flooded really badly. All of what I'm showing you right here, all went underwater. Kingwood High School is right here. The high school went underwater. It cost $75 million to rebuild the high school. 75 million. Those high school kids had to be bused to Tascasita down here. And the Tascasita kids went to school in the morning from 6 to 12. And the Kingwood High School kids went from 12 to 6. That's what they had to do until they rebuilt the school. Only in the last semester did Kingwood College get back to normal. It took 2 years for the rebuilding process to completely fix. It takes a long, long time for this to happen. So this is why I urged you at the beginning, if you don't have flood insurance, think seriously hard about it. See all this area? This would have went underwater had the dams failed here. And we'll get a little bit into the dams later on. Conroe Dam is right up here. And Addicks is over here. They both had to release an awful lot of water. And there's a lot of debate about, they caused part of flooding. Not really the case. I learned that from studying this, that the system that they have, the floodgate system, you can't do anything to prevent the release of water. The system automatically starts releasing water, but we'll get into that. So, and here it is. So, a lot of people in Kingwood, there was a lot of lawsuits after this. They wanted to sue for Conroe releasing water. He said the release from the dam, that water coming down flooded their houses. Yeah, it did, but there was no way to stop it. We have two kinds of reservoir systems. We have a water supply system, that's what Conroe is, and we have a flood control system. Addicks is a flood control system. And a flood control reservoir, you keep it empty and you let it fill up. But eventually you're going to have to release that water as well, okay? And the reason we built Addicks was to stop downtown Houston from flooding. So we had Addicks here, we had Conroe here, and then there was supposed to be another one built somewhere in between that, because you have Livingstone way up here as well. That third or fourth one was never built because houses took the place of it and development. And I mentioned this before in a previous thing. Local governments make money off property taxes. They don't make money off dams or reservoirs. So overdevelopment was a huge contributing factor, and what's going to cause much more flooding in the future for all of us sitting or living in Houston. So this is Addicks. So it's deliberately kept low, so when it rains, it floods. Conroe is always high. So it doesn't take very much to fill up Conroe, and then you're going to have to start releasing water, and that's what they have to do. They have to release it in the San Jacinto, okay? And so there was a big argument, legal arguments about that, and did they contribute to, the flooding of Kingwood or the college or whatever? The reality is that they didn't have control over it. If it hadn't been for the dam system, all that area, this whole area would have been inundated with water, not just the portion of Kingwood that were. There's no system that can handle this amount of rain, and especially when you're at sea level. Look at those numbers, 30 inches of rain, 20 inches of rain in a 2 to 3 or 4 day period. there's no drainage system that can handle that. And when you're at sea level, you can't do anything about that. You're just going to have to try and wait and see if we can make through it and do that, will the dams or reservoirs hold. And essentially that was happening. Conroe came very close to going over the top. And I'll show you, basically in a dam system, and this is another part of this process, you learn a lot of technical things when I was doing this. A tanker gate basically is the gate that opens when the reservoir starts releasing water. What pushes the gate open is the water gets so high that it pushes the top like this. And so it opens at the bottom and it's controlling the water coming out. If that didn't happen, water would only have one way to go, and that would be over the top. That's why the management at the reservoirs didn't have any control of the amount of water coming over, because the water's pushing against it and it's pushing the gate open at the bottom. So they're gradually trying to control the water system. Had too much water come at one time and it went over the top, it would have just took the gate out completely. And I'm talking about gate, there's like a series of gates, okay? But there's no system that can handle 30 plus inches of rain. I don't care what city you live in. You've seen the flooding recently. After a couple hours flooding, you can't get down through your neighborhood. I've noticed it a lot more in where I live in Kingwood now. So, some of the lessons that learned. This is a quick summary from the paper of the lessons learned. Just stick and pass it on there. Like I said, it cost the college the system and the college 66 million to address the problems at Kingwood College, okay? And I show you the breakdown of that, which was, the state finally came across with 13.1 million. FEMA came up with 10 to 11 million, and then insurance paid about 10 to 11 million. That means in the future, we're going to have to carry an awful lot more water. The system's going to have to carry a lot more insurance in the future. Because we were lucky that the states stepped in. We have reserve to fall back on. Most institutions don't have that.
Is the Kingwood area now considered a floodplain?
Only parts of it. Look, my house didn't flood, so, but ironically, I just showed you the map, and I showed you where my house is, and I showed you all the parts that flooded. They're building a new subdivision right above Kingwood College. And water that flooded, land that flooded. And only that I know, I live in this subdivision that's in higher ground here. I know that. But if I was a brand new home buyer, oh, look at these great party houses, blah, blah, blah. I was there when it flooded, about the institutional memory. I was there when it flooded, and all that land went under. Now, there was a requirement that you had to go build 3 feet higher. I drive across the road that is adjunct to it, or adjacent to it, is higher than the houses. So that land is going to go underwater. But, it's about development, it's about building houses. Some of those were grandfathered in because they had previous before that. But I would never buy a house there. But that's, I have knowledge of that because of what happened. We'll look at some of those things that I just showed you. Some of the lessons I learned from this. You have to identify disaster recovery consultants. We're talking about the school has to do that. You're going to need people that can do remediation. You have to have experience in HVAC. Remember, a college has to have all these lined up. Most colleges do. They're called master service agreements. And Kingwood College and our college, we have these agreements with different contractors that will replace roofs, that will replace windows, if you don't have those agreements, all those people are just going to work for everybody else. So institutions have to have those agreements. Rethink reconstruction efforts. You're going to have to rebuild, so you have to think about, do you just build it the exact same way again, or do you make it stronger and better? If you want to make it stronger and better, it's going to cost what? More money. They did a really good thing, and this is part of the cultural changes that I'll talk about. The library was devastated in Kingwood College. So what they did was they asked the librarians and the library director to come up with a book of ideas. So the librarians went to all the libraries around the city and the state and went to library conferences, and they came back with like a wish list. What would be the ideal library if we want to build from scratch? Because the library is one of the largest buildings on the Kingwood campus. It had to go the whole way back to the studs. It went underwater completely. So they told all the librarians and the library director, what would you like done to the library to enhance it? And that was part of the cultural change. They changed the whole footprint of the library, the whole design of the library, the colors. All the equipment is functional, dual functional. They have 2 labs at the back of the library that are all glass. They said, well, we're going to do computer labs. Why don't we make that bulletproof glass so it can act as, a safe situation? Because there's a lot of people in the library. You need to shove them in one direction if there was a shooter on campus. And so they started thinking in those terms. And they've really changed. And this typical thing of what you think of a library is you walk in and there's computers and the tables and you look things up. You don't have that anymore. You check out a computer and it's a system where you swipe a card and it's kind of like getting a Coke. The computer comes out, you work on it, when you finish you put it back in the machine again. They've really changed so many things culturally wise on the campus. Another thing about culture that I need to hit here is because there was no space, the vice presidents and the president and the deans had to work together. And so they were jammed together in rooms like this. I went over to visit with the vice president, and he was in a room like a closet, and there was 2 other people around him, and that was a dean there, and that was somebody else there. A strange thing about that is that they found out they were very, very effective at solving problems because they were all in the same room, instead of you in building F, you in building A or building C. So that close proximity really, and this is this idea about when you have a disaster like this, it changes your whole way of thinking things. When you have the presidents and the VPs and the deans and the DOMs and the DOSs all in the same location, things get done faster. And if you have a problem, you just turn around and talk to the person. Now, they had to do that in the beginning because they didn't have a lot of room. But what they decided to do is that when they rebuilt, they took one of the buildings that was devastated, and the bottom is going to be the admin building. And so all the VPs, the president, and all the deans and the DOMs are going to be there. The second floor of that is going to be a shared room for faculty. And it's called the Open Concept, where they piloted this project, Kingwood College did. They found that faculty liked working together because they had to work together during these conditions because nobody had an office. So there would be a room like this and there'd be 10, 15 faculty in there, and you'd come in, you'd do your work, and then you'd leave. They found out that faculty enjoyed that. So they created the second floor of the same building, the PAC building on Kingwood campus. And what they do is they offered faculty, you can either have your old office back, or you can just stay with this new open concept where you don't particularly have an office. And that's very strange because, you know, the whole adage about you want that big corner office, that's not an issue. You know, you can have it or not have it. You can go back to have an office, and a lot of the faculty seem to enjoy it. Some wanted their office back, but it's just a totally different way of thinking about problems and there's a different attitude about, it's just about coming on, doing your work, meeting your students when you have to meet your students, but it's not this idea that I have to be here at a certain time and I have to be covered as long as you got your job done. So it should totally change the relationship between faculty working with each other, and you had different faculty that had never met each other. I'm in A building, and it's in my suite, it's history and government. I rarely meet anybody from physics or from all the different other sciences, you know. So I find that a lot of different faculty members were working together because of what had happened. Because that was some of the cultural changes. Let's see, a couple of other changes there. A big problem, so that was rethinking, you know, the development of the campus and the cultural changes. They spent $19 million buying items for the college that were destroyed. And think about that, as a dean, you can think about this, Kirk. You have to turn in an inventory for everything that BAS has. Well, if you haven't itemized that ahead of time, think how hard that's going to be. So you need everybody, whether it's a chair, it's a department head, etc., you have to realize what resources you have. They lost from screwdrivers to every lawnmower to every vehicle they had on campus, all went underwater. And so they had to order all of that. And so it's going to take about 6 to 9 months to rebuild the campus. Well, you order all that stuff and you have to have logistically an idea where you're going to store it. So it just so happened that there was a big empty building in Kingwood, an old Sears, and they took the Sears building over. And they had furniture here, they had whiteboards here, because you're going to have to buy all this stuff, and as soon as the college is up and running, you're going to have to move it. It needs storage, you have to pay for storage. But it was quite amazing what they went with the inventory. So it made me think that everybody needs to do that. Storage of important documents. Everybody, you, me, and everybody needs to keep a copy of everything that's important to them, whether it's syllabus, your class on nursing. You know, we keep that on our computers. What else if your computer's destroyed? You have to keep it on the cloud as well. You have to have backups somewhere else. They all left on Friday thinking start school on Monday, and all the information was on their computer. Some of them hadn't got copies of their syllabus, hadn't got copies of their lectures or anything, and had to start from the very beginning. A couple of other things in there. International students, veterans present a major problem in international students because they're not allowed to take online classes 100%. So we had, Kingwood College had to get special permission from ICE, Immigration Nationalization Service, to allow the students for one semester. They have 108 international students. They had to get special permission for each one of those students to take all their classes online. And the Veterans Administration wouldn't give a release for the veterans to take all their classes online, so the veterans had to go to different campuses. So you need to have somebody who understands that. And so if it happens on the administrative side, that you're going to have to deal with those problems because those foreign students are going to need a lot of help. Petty cash, there was thousands of dollars, hundreds of dollars all over the campus that was unaccounted for because nobody was allowed back on the campus when this happened, no faculty member. So, you know, we have petty cash in BAS, all the different divisions of petty cash, some of the local clubs on campus have petty cash. So you need a system for bringing that in if you're going to have some kind of storm in the Gulf that's heading your direction. Financial concerns. Kingwood College was extremely lucky in this situation. An anonymous donor donated $1 million to help students and to help faculty members. And so, as a faculty member or a student or an employee, you were allowed to apply for a loan, an emergency loan. And they give up to 1,400 emergency loans. And that was somebody from the community that stepped up and realized there was a need. Some students lost their cars, some students, and they had to set up committees in order to donate that money. Another thing that happened during this time period, employee assistance programs. Employee assistance programs only are for full-time employees. So Kingwood College applied to the system and got that expanded to all part-time employees and all adjunct employees. So they were entitled to all those benefits that we take for granted as full-time employees. Another item there that has to do with faculty members is that most of you in the class, in this workshop would understand this, or you've done it before, you've taught online. Some people haven't taught online. And so you can imagine the shock on Monday morning when your semester was 5 classes face-to-face, and now it's 5 classes online. Okay? If you've taught online, it's no big deal. But if you haven't taught online, it's a major deal. So they had to retrain many people. And people in the sciences are going to have to give labs. How do you teach a lab online? How do you teach biology? So you have to come up, if a worst case scenario happened, how would you teach your class? And so that came through in the session. How are we doing on time there? Okay, I've only got a few more minutes left. I'll talk about enhancing morale. When you have a catastrophic event like this, morale takes a nosedive. You need to have social events and numerous social events, and you need to worry about the psychological well-being of all the people on campus, from the people who do the groundwork to the people who do teaching, the administrator, because their whole existence has been thrown upside down. You have to have a lot of social events, and you have to have ways for people to get together. One of my suggestions, I used to use the gym quite a lot at Kingwood College. It was destroyed, and I met a lot of faculty members there when I had used it before. Well, you can actually, we should set up a relationship with all the local gyms. Our college or LSC could do that quite easy. During these disasters, you need to have ways for the faculty to release stress, and you need more counseling, and you need more EAP services. So you're going to have to think about that ahead of time. So I learned a lot about that and enhancing morale. Ultimately, the college was able to save the semester because they retrained all the people, all the staff. They started on the 26th of September. The original date was supposed to be the 27th of August. So within a month, we were able to get this all together and up and running. They had a record enrollment that semester, the highest enrollment they ever had, 12,950 at Kingwood College. And they were able to pretty well make it to the end of the semester without losing very many students because of the staggered start times, 12-week, 8-week, and 6-week. We have the advantage over universities that we can do that because we're pretty good at it. I don't think, and maybe it's partially because we have introductory courses. So I think community colleges are better at that to handling those kind of situations. Some of the bonuses of doing the sabbatical, I think you need to challenge yourself academically as much as possible if you want to keep your mind sharp and keep in the game. I got a lot of that out of this. I was able to work with a lot of administrators and faculty from a different college. It really excited me and made me more passionate about teaching and doing research. Sometimes we get wrapped up in doing our day-to-day jobs, where you're teaching this class, you just kind of get wrapped in the same class and the next class and the next class. You forget about why you got into this occupation, to help students and to grow as a person. And the last one there, reflect and professionally and personally. This sabbatical is one of the best things I've ever done. It just really changes you as a professional, and it really changes your personal outlook in life. And I think every couple of years you need to build something like this in to do that. It's not just all about work. It wasn't all about doing that paper. I got to travel. I got to exercise every day anytime I wanted to. I got to just relax and enjoy life. You know, we get wrapped up in our jobs and rush, and the semester starts and it's off and rushing. Just to take about 4 or 5 months for you and to focus on you professionally and personally gives you a different outlook at life. And that's what I got out of this experience. Okay, I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you.